Hello. In this video, we would like to explain to you about acute toxicity test of Sintok bark, Cinnamomum sintoc, extract on zebrafish embryo, Danio rerio. Test subject. The test subject that was used in this experiment is zebrafish embryo, Danio rerio, that had just been fertilized by exposure to chemical compounds for 96 hours with observations every 24 hours. Use embryos before 6 hours after fertilization. The embryos used were 20 embryos for each plate. Conclusions. First is embryos of newly fertilized zebrafish with exposure to chemical compounds for 96 hours and observations every 24 hours. And the second is no coagulation. The exclusion consists of embryos that were coagulated, embryos that had inhibited somite formation, embryos that were inhibited from releasing tail buds from the yolk, embryos that had a weakened heart rate. Submission of ethical clearance. By submitting research proposals to the Ethics Committee of Medical and Health Research of the Faculty of Medicine, Islamic University of Indonesia. Hayati, F. 2020. Conceptual work. Independent variable. Dosage of sintok bark, Cinnamomum sintoc. Dependent variable. Percent of LC50 in the zebrafish embryo. Coagulation. Somite formation. Removing tail bud from yolk. Heartbeat. Number of mortality. Control variable. Water and test condition. Stability of test solution. Exposure time. Eggs collection and differentiation. Age of embryo. And quality of embryo. Main test. First, Simplicia extraction using 70% ethanol. The step is washing the sintok bark, and then dry it. After that, do the extraction using maceration method until get the extract. The detail step can be seen in scheme. Second, fish fertilization. Place the zebrafish in aquarium with buffer water in 28 degrees Celsius. Don't forget to feed zebrafish daily. In the breeding process, adult males and females, 2-to-1, were placed in the aquarium overnight. Ovulation and fertilization occur stimulated at the beginning of the light period. For egg retrieval, spawning traps are placed into the spawning or rearing tanks. Spawning traps are covered with an inert wire mesh. Then the eggs will be immediately transferred to a petri dish. The detail step can be seen in slide. Third, embryo selection. The embryos that used are embryos after 6 hours after fertilization. Fourth, preparation of toxicity testing solution. For testing solution we make 5 different concentration. And then the 5 result concentration series dilution is used for determination of lethal concentration or LC50. Fifth, embryo treatment. Prepared 7 micro well plates, consisting of 5 plates for 5 concentrations of sintok bark extract. 1 plate for positive control. 3,4 DCA 4 mg per liter. 1 plate for negative control, dilution water, in the form of embryo media. Use 20 embryos for 1 plate. Put 1 embryo in 1 well. Place all test solutions without embryos in the incubator. for 24 hours before the embryos are put into the well. Embryos observation. The observations will be made every 24 hours and carried out up to 96 hours. And then observation of embryos was carried out using a stereo microscope. Next, the observations were made based on 4 parameters observed, such as embryo coagulation, somite formation, release of tail buds from egg yolk, and heart rate. So, in this research, the data that we analyze, there are 5 parameters: coagulation, somite formation, heartbeat of embryo that can be observed, removing tail bud from yolk, and the last is embryo that die. You can see the formula in slide. Coagulation can be calculated by dividing number of coagulated embryo with total number of embryo, then multiply with 100%. For somite formation can be calculated by dividing number of embryos that have experienced somite formation with number of live embryo, then multiply with 100%. For heartbeat can be calculated by dividing number of embryos whose heartbeat can be observed with number of live embryo, then multiply with 100%. And then, for removing tail bud from yolk, can be calculated by dividing number of embryos that experienced of removing tail bud from the yolk with number of live embryo, then multiply with 100%. And BSP, for embryo that die, can be calculated by dividing number of embryos that die with number of embryo, then multiply with 100%. After that, we can calculate LC50 or letal concentration 50% by making linear regression between concentration versus mortality. And also statistical calculation is conducted using one-way ANOVA. This is the scheme of the method. First, we make a submission of ethical clearance by submitting the research proposals. Then we do the manufacture of Sintok bark Simplicia, and we make the extract by maceration and filtering process. Next, we fertilize the zebrafish for 24 hours, 14 hours light and 10 hours dark. After that, we do the embryo selection. We separate fertilized eggs from unfertilized eggs. The fertilized eggs will be given by some treatment. Before we do the treatment, we make the solution test or toxicity testing solution. Next, we do the treatment, embryo exposure. Then we observe the embryo, and last we can do the data analysis.